Thank you, William and Mike, for a fantastic keynote. And now we move on to another interesting subject, and I'm delighted to introduce Verena Kane, accelerator physicist and data scientist.
So welcome everybody, and I welcome Professor Patrick Glauner, who is Professor for Artificial Intelligence at the Deggendorf Institute of Technology. But he's also been ranked by the CDO Magazine as one of the academic data leaders. He's founded skyrocket.ai, and he's also the CEO of it, and has been in the advisory role for various European parliaments, France, Germany, and Luxembourg, I read. And today is here with his talk on the AI revolution, talking about recent developments, opportunities, and best practices. It's up to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Verena. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm just so happy 600 alumni are here. I think we sent a great message that there's a great alumni network, and I'm also very happy that multiple of the current directors are here, Charlotte and Mike. Fabiola left already, and thanks a lot to you, Rachel, and your team for organizing the conference and for sending emails all the time. So AI is all over the place, and AI is not just changing single industries. AI has started to change the worldwide economy. Today I'll talk about some recent developments, some opportunities, how you can contribute to all of this, and share some best practices. First of all, I quickly want to explain how I ended up in AI and how CERN maneuvered me actually into AI. So I came to CERN in 2011 as a technical student, and I'll later tell you what I did exactly, and then after my technical studentship, in which I did my bachelor's thesis, I stayed on as a fellow, and then in total, after 3 years, I left. I felt it was time to, return to university, and then went to Imperial for my master's in AI, did my PhD in Luxembourg, worked in industry. I worked at Krones. Krones is a German engineering company. They're actually the world market leader in bottling lines. 1 out of 2 bottles in Central Europe is filled by a Krones line, and worldwide 1 out of 4 bottles. And I advanced AI in the bottling line business. And then 4 years ago, I got my professorship in Bavaria. So AI is all over the place, and 3 weeks ago, there was the big annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, and AI was the topic there. Fabiola was there, I was there, Sascha Schmeling, one of the other CERN contributors, was there, and Sascha and I had a panel on AI and education, and I think if the World Economic Forum focuses on AI at their annual meeting, it must be a really important topic. AI exists since, at least the 1950s, but for the last few years, we all get to see AI now because generative AI has become more popular. You get to see all these fancy images that are generated by an AI. I guess many of you have tried tools like DALL-E and others, and what you do is you write a prompt and you generate an image. So your prompt could be, hey, I want an image in which a robot paints a painting. I want a blurred style with a green background and water in the background. You probably wonder, how does that change the worldwide economy? Now imagine you have a different job. For example, say you work at IKEA and your task is to design new chairs, couches, and sofas. And now you're being tasked with that you should design a new couch or sofa that looks like an avocado. That's probably something that is quite tricky because it hasn't been done before. Well, you can use generative AI and you get a lot of possible, solutions within a few seconds. Not all of these chairs are maybe comfortable, but some of them are. So, and then if you're a furniture designer, you could take some of these proposals and improve them. But it will certainly give you plenty of new ideas that you have never thought about. And generative AI is also nothing new. Generative AI has been there for decades, but in the last few years it has just become more popular. So what is actually AI? When I was in Davos, we also discussed quite a lot what AI actually is, and all the AI experts seem to disagree, and there is not that one definition in the literature, and that makes it quite complex. When I talk to decision makers, they want to know in one sentence what AI is. And I say, well, it's about automating decision making. Humans make a lot of decisions every day. There are studies that say that humans make about 30,000 decisions every day. Now, with AI, we have the opportunity to automate that we can make decisions faster, cheaper, better. For example, in private life, like autonomous driving, or also in engineering, in work, in sales. There are a lot of opportunities. So it's about automating decisions. And all of you deal with AI hundreds of times a day without explicitly knowing it. AI applications are really embedded in our daily lives. For example, optical character recognition, face recognition, spam filtering, credit card fraud checks, recommender systems, high-frequency trading, and many more. And we deal with all of this every day, hundreds of times. So AI has now really has become part of our society and of our daily lives. There are numerous directions in AI. The direction that has become most popular in the last few years, probably the last 20 years, is machine learning. So in traditional AI, say expert systems, we try to describe rules and solve a problem. But for very complex problems, it turns out you can hardly describe them, especially if problems are maybe somewhat dynamic and just hard to describe. So what we do instead is we don't describe the problem solution anymore, but we learn it from data. So we use machine learning, and machine learning aims at finding patterns in data, and these patterns can then be used in order to solve new instances. And spam filters, for example, are an example of machine learning. Because it's just so difficult to describe what spam actually is, which words, how they appear together, and many other factors. So the best thing is you can learn it, that you have examples of spam and non-spam, and then the AI finds a pattern. Typically, machine learning is based on statistics, but there are also other approaches. Now, how did I get into AI? When I did my undergrad, there wasn't any AI part of my undergrad. And then I applied at CERN for my technical studentship in order to come here for 1 year and do my bachelor's thesis. And all that application was sort of strange. I didn't apply for a specific project, only to a pool, and then I got an offer, and I ended up in the CERN document server team. Something all of you use every day, and I was tasked with working on the search engine and doing some text mining. Concretely, what I worked on was the full text search, make the scale, and also improve the ranking. And this is how I got interested in AI, in text mining initially. In my bachelor's thesis, I enabled the underlying software of CDS, which is called Invenio. I enabled this to do full text search as well as use more advanced ranking methods. And we deployed it. I know the user interface of CDS is probably still improvable, and it still looks the same like 10 years ago, but that was not my task. But all of this sparked my interest in AI, and somehow the time at CERN also sparked my interest in public speaking, because I became involved in guiding visitors here, gave guided tours, lectures, and all of this. So probably without CERN, I would have not ended up in AI and as a professor, so I'm just very grateful about my 3 years at CERN and also very happy to be here today. Now, the AI that has made the field of AI extremely popular for the last 14, 15 months or so is ChatGPT. And I think ChatGPT is just a tiny part of AI. Now some people think, well, ChatGPT is all AI, but it's just a tiny tool that is actually quite helpful. You can obviously use it to generate burger recipes, so how to make a great burger meal. You can use it to write texts for you, summarize texts. I somehow feel since ChatGPT has become available, my students send extremely lengthy emails that they didn't send before, and I guess many of you have noticed similar stuff in academia. So I think, students, they just, they have 3 bullets and they put this in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, yeah, can you generate a super lengthy text? And then I just copy and paste it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, yeah, can you summarize this in 3 bullets? So, but I guess many of you have been through something similar, so that doesn't work. But overall, it's a very helpful tool, and it's not just text. You can also use it to generate source code. And I think that's, a fantastic example of how you, as a coder, can become more efficient. The AI will not ultimately make you unemployed if you're a coder, but you will be made unemployed by your competitor who uses these tools and you don't, because you can easily become more productive. So you have a problem if you don't use the tool. So it's not really AI against human, it's AI together with humans. And I think we have strengths, the AI has strengths, and these tools get better and better. And there's obviously not just ChatGPT, there are many others. In this keynote, I'm unable to discuss in detail how ChatGPT works. There are many great references. Now the politicians are interested in AI and regulating AI, and they're sort of scared of AI. And even I, as an AI practitioner and researcher, I'm often surprised to read in the newspaper what AI is actually about now. It's not magic. ChatGPT is not magic. Eventually, it's a neural network. And these artificial neural networks, they are inspired by how the human brain works, maybe very loosely inspired. They do not work like the human brain, that's very important. And these deep neural networks that have a lot of hidden layers, they excel in numerous tasks in computer vision and natural language processing. And essentially the basis of ChatGPT was proposed 6.5 years ago. There was a paper that is called Attention is All You Need, and what the paper proposed was a new kind of neural network that just learns better than previous architectures how words correlate. Technically speaking, it's not about words, about tokens, but let's say words for now. And you need to learn in such an AI how tokens or words correlate. And this architecture that was proposed 6.5 years ago, the transformer architecture, it's a kind of neural network that just learns this better than previous approaches. All of you are techies. If you're interested in how to build your own transformers, there's a really good book that appeared like 1.5 years ago. It's called Natural Language Processing with Transformers, and it explains to you how to build your own transformers and your own language models. It's a very good book. Now, what I see is everyone wants to do AI now. And AI is a very helpful tool, but it's not the ultimate solution to every possible problem. If you want to use AI in your company or in your organization, there are 2 directions you can go. You can put AI in your value chain, so to optimize your internal processes, or you can put AI in your products and services and help others to optimize their value chain. Both directions are possible. Maybe long-term wise, you could do both. Ideally, start with your own value chain, because you will have access to the data. You probably need to think less about product liability and sales, but sooner or later, also look into products and services. And recently, I feel everyone wants to do AI for everything. And there are even guidelines on the internet how to find AI projects in your organization. And even though I'm, totally interested in AI, I don't like such guidelines. Because if you say you want to do AI or you want to, find AI use cases, what you're doing is, from a business perspective, you're coming with a solution, and you're not just looking for problems, but you're creating artificial problems that actually don't exist. So always solve your problem as simple as possible. If 2 or 3 rules are enough, then do it. Don't train a neural network. If you need to rethink your business process, do that. So human intelligence first, and then the artificial intelligence on top. Because a lot of companies, they're experimenting with AI, and there are certain studies that claim that 80% of AI use cases don't work out in companies. often has to do because they're coming with AI as a solution, and maybe the problem is just not made for AI, or the problem actually didn't exist at all. And the 80% failure rate is really not great. However, there are certain, indications for use cases when AI could be helpful. For example, when a decision process just takes very long. So humans need very long to decide, to design something, to do whatever. Then obviously an AI could help to speed this up, that you can make the decision within milliseconds rather than days or weeks. So time can be a good factor. Cost are another factor. Obviously, time contributes to the costs, but maybe wrong decisions increase costs, or you need extra natural resources, say in a cleansing process, you need more acid. Maybe AI can help you to optimize this. So time, costs. The third factor where AI can be interesting is what I call uncertainty. Say you have two domain experts and they're given the same task, but they decide differently. So AI could help you to make maybe more uniform decisions. These are some indications when AI could be your solution, but again, human intelligence first and then the artificial intelligence. And I also want to share some insights about Davos, where I was just a few weeks ago. That was the general event of the World Economic Forum, but there was also a separate event called the AI House. And there were AI events all week long, and the good thing is you could also get a ticket for free, because if you want to go to the main event, it's quite expensive. And the AI House, you had to sign up and get a ticket. A lot of applicants obviously got stuck on the waiting list, but you could enter for free. And I think that's a great part of the AI House. The costs were covered by the organizers as well as Swisscom, which was one of the main organizers. And a lot of people show up during the week. Obviously AI experts, but also politicians, former politicians. For example, Theresa May was there, the former Prime Minister of the UK. Everyone is now interested in AI. I don't think that the former Prime Minister is an AI expert, but if she shows up at the AI House, means AI is somewhat interesting, so she wants to learn more. And we had a chat about AI, which was good. But I also met, for example, Andrew Ng, one of the leading AI experts in the Valley, who was also one of the founders of Coursera. Now, I'm overall very optimistic about AI. AI is changing the worldwide economy. It's changing the jobs market. And what you should do is, you should, if you don't know about AI yet, learn about AI and think about how you can contribute to the transformation of your domain. And probably this is the best way how to keep your job and make a lot of money. Because otherwise someone else will do it. But the politicians, they are also interested in AI. They're quite scared. Recently, you hear all these fears about AI and all these new laws they want to introduce because they come up with very extreme scenarios. I don't know if some of you know the moral machine. Who has ever used a moral machine? Maybe just raise your hand. Well, quite some. If you have not, you can check this website online. It's called a moral machine, and you're given 13 scenarios. And somehow this autonomous car doesn't have a brake, or the brake is broken. And you need to choose between the left action and the right action. The left action would mean the car would just go straight and kill these pedestrians. The right action would mean the car bumps into this wall and the people that sit in the car die. All of this is simplified, but you're given 13 unique scenarios. And then making the right decision is actually quite difficult, as you will see. So you will see it's tough. But autonomous cars are still a huge opportunity because what we see is in the data that there are far less accidents. So there will still be accidents, but less. And I think that's a huge opportunity. But recently there have been all sorts of warnings about AI. End of March last year, Elon Musk and others proposed a 6-month AI moratorium in which they proposed that high-end AI research should pause. I was very confused about that because they said, well, the end is near, and if we pause for 6 months, we can solve all the problems. I was not convinced. I also had an interview with the Swiss television and radio about this and said, well, this looks like an early April Fool, you know. I got a lot of criticism for having said that, but just a few days later, Elon Musk, who actually had asked for the moratorium, proposed a huge AI initiative at Twitter. So I was very confused about this, and I think they just hoped that someone would actually join the moratorium and probably lose competitiveness. There was also the AI Safety Summit in the UK end of last year, in which the Prime Minister brought together numerous stakeholders to talk about AI and if it's safe. The EU has also been working on something for the last 3 years that they call the AI Act. Probably some of you have heard it. The EU has proposed a legal framework for AI, and obviously feedback on this is very diverse. If you talk to the AI experts, they may say, well, too many rules. If you talk to representatives of civil society and others, they may say, well, it's not enough, as usual. If you look at the AI Act, you will see it's actually a horizontal framework covering not just individual use cases, but AI as a whole. And this could eventually lead to contradictory regulation compared to all the vertical regulation that exists already. If you build a car, an airplane, a power plant, and you put AI in it, you can do this, but it's part of a bigger system, and those systems are regulated already for a very good reason. So I'm not too sure if we actually need the AI Act as a whole, because it just creates a lot of contradictory regulation and will probably stifle innovation in the EU and make building AI more expensive. I was an expert witness in various parliaments, as Verena mentioned before, and gave evidence. I'm not against AI regulation, but I don't see the need for the AI Act that is 120 or 140 pages of just rules in which we will obviously make innovation more expensive. What I would like to see is maybe just 2 pages of rules and 100 pages on innovation, how we can actually foster innovation in the EU. And there's a lot of rumors that AI was unsafe. I actually think AI is quite safe. AI models work. And if you take good courses in AI, you will also learn how to build better models, how to quantify risks. All of this is at hand. Obviously, AI models can still make mistakes, but so do humans. And I think it's awfully wrong to apply always these double standards to AI and everything else. Maybe we should apply the same standards to AI we apply to other disciplines and to humans. And probably like this, a lot of these fears could disappear. Now, the EU is thinking about all this regulation. I get to travel quite a lot, and a lot is happening around the globe. I get to travel a lot to China, for example, because my wife is from Shanghai originally, and I also have customers in China. And it's just amazing how quickly China is progressing in AI. If you're curious about this, there's a book here on the left. It's called AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee. Kai-Fu Lee grew up in Taiwan, studied in the US, was an executive with Apple, and then he established Google China in mainland China. And then now he's an investor in the Silicon Valley. And in this book, he describes how China approaches AI, investments, and how the Western world does it. If you read that book, you'll get scared, and I think you should get scared, because sooner or later, we in Europe will become totally dependent on China if we just add more rules, constraints, and we forget about innovation. Because AI is really a very interdisciplinary topic. We can apply AI not just to particle physics. We can apply it to chemistry, mechanical engineering. And if China keeps advancing very rapidly in AI, sooner or later, German engineering companies or chemistry companies will be totally dependent on China. And I don't think that's a situation that we want. We want to have sovereignty, not just in clouds, but also in AI. So read the book. The right book here is from 2 Harvard professors, and it's not so much about China and the Western world, but in general, how the worldwide economy has started to change and how data-driven models are changing our economy worldwide. Yet I want to just share some impressions of what I actually saw in China during my last trip, just that you see the magnitude of what's going on. I was in the beginning of January in Shenzhen, where the Huawei headquarters is based. I know there's a lot of rumors about Huawei and spying. I'm unable to comment on this. But what I see is they're advancing very rapidly, and probably they build extremely good products. And they have also a research campus outside Shenzhen in a town or city called Dongguan. And in Dongguan, they built a European campus which is inspired by European cities. This is Luxembourg City, Stockholm, the Paris City Hall, the French National Library. They rebuilt this. And it's not just representation, but there are actually R&Ds based there, training centers. And this campus is 14 square kilometers. It's just the enormous size. I wasn't aware of this campus. It opened 5 years ago, and I had a look at it. It's very impressive. If you've ever been to Heidelberg, you've seen the castle. They actually completed the castle. Now, it's just very impressive to see the dimensions, the rapid pace of innovation, how quickly things are built. So I was just very impressed to see the Dongguan campus. If you're curious about more best practices in AI, also how to approach building your own AI products and services, I published a book a few years ago which is called Innovative Technologies for Market Leadership, and there's a chapter in it about unlocking the power of AI for your business. This is not a sales pitch. You find a PDF for free. If you buy the book with Springer, it costs, I don't know, 70 euros. We, as the two editors, we get less than €1. So we really, don't make the big money by selling these books. But you find that PDF also on the web. So I left CERN 10 years ago. And I'm very happy that I'm still in touch with CERN from time to time. I'm very happy to be here. CERN organizes every year the CERN Spring Campus. Maybe you're aware of this. It's a spring school in IT. And Derek Matheson organizes it. And next month it will actually take place at my university. So I'm very happy that this is another way how I can collaborate with CERN. And this is my talk so far. Thank you very much, and thanks, Rachel, for organizing the conference. Yeah. Time for questions.
Does this work? Yeah. I wanted to say this. It's time for questions. But I also wanted to say thanks a lot for this talk. This was extremely insightful. I think there are a lot of lessons that I will reuse and steal, if that is okay with you, for many of these occasions, because these topics are coming back. Thanks. So, time for questions.
Sorry, I came around the wrong way. Thank you for the super insightful talk. So I work in the field of AI, responsible AI, which among other areas includes governance and regulation. So I would love to learn more about your comment as to why you are a bit critical of the upcoming regulation. If you can comment also like the EU introducing GDPR, which had its effects also in the other countries. And if you comment on some people arguing that once the EU introduces the legislation, it will influence other countries. And so, in a way, the big companies will have to comply everywhere in the world in some way. So, yeah, in some way, just comment how this might help us in terms of safety.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, the GDPR, when you hear about the GDPR in Brussels, they claim there was a Brussels effect, that this was sort of a role model around the world, and I think it's really not a role model. GDPR has been called to kill people in Europe because we're unable to gather enough data in healthcare. It's a tough claim, but I think there's good evidence. I'm not against data protection, but I think there are probably good parts in the GDPR. And if you look at California, yes, what they do is maybe inspired by the GDPR, but they pick 2 pages that are maybe most useful. So, and I think in Europe, we always tend to over-regulate things. And the same with the AI Act. Yes, there are certain risks when you use AI, but it's not the AI that turns conscious and takes over the world. You put AI in products and services, and yes, those products and services, they may pose a risk. It's not the actual AI, it's in an autonomous car, it's actuators. And there's plenty of regulation for cars already. And maybe we need a little bit of extra regulation in that use case, then I think we should solve this vertically, not horizontally. In the AI Act, first of all, now it's been discussed for 3 years, in the first draft, the question was, what is AI? I told you before that all these AI people disagree. So the first definition of the AI Act said, well, it's machine learning, expert systems, deep learning. Okay, I would agree that this is AI, but then it also continued that every statistical method and every optimization method was AI. So if I use a calculator to calculate the mean of 3 numbers, well, I calculate the expected value. So is that also an AI? The EU believes yes. And they said only software that does all of that. And then in the first hearing in the German parliament 3 years ago, I said, well, I think it's very broad if you say all of these things, but if it's just software, then it's actually too narrow because you can only use, an ASIC, purely hardware-based implementation, then it would not be regulated at all. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. And there are a lot of other requirements in the AI Act, especially for these high-risk applications. So what is high risk? High risk means to me that where there's a major threat to health and safety. But the definition of high risk in the AI Act is very broad. It even includes education, customization of learning content. I have my doubts if that's really high risk. And for high risk, there are high requirements. Initially, the AI Act required that you would have data sets that are completely error-free, completely representative, completely bias-free. Frankly speaking, that doesn't exist, and it will not exist. Then they said, you know, most representative, most error-free, but what does that mean? I don't know personally. And I think there's a good intention behind the AI Act, but maybe you can summarize that good intention on 2 pages and maybe increase vertical regulation where necessary, but with this very generic horizontal regulation, I just have my doubts. The government also, by the way, will not be able to enforce it. Now the trilogue is coming to an end because in the member states in the EU, they would need to hire probably tens of thousands of AI experts that don't exist or that are not willing to work for AI or for government salaries. So I think eventually if you introduce such rules, they also need to be enforceable, and they will not be enforceable from the government, and if they had less rules and maybe more concrete rules, they would be enforceable.
Okay, thank you. Here. Thank you for your talk. I just wonder if I think you partially replied, but if you have a single specific suggestion how not to lose really the innovation edge in Europe on AI, to other countries, what that would be. And the second question, do you have a take on open source AI?
Well, I would cancel the AI Act altogether. I don't think there's much of a need for the AI Act because AI is always part of systems, and those systems that pose a risk to health and safety, they are regulated already. And if we maybe need some more AI-specific regulations, say in avionics, then we should add it vertically. I don't think the AI Act will actually solve a lot of problems. It will add a lot of problems. Then open source, I totally support open source. I think thanks to open source, we have really good libraries on the market nowadays. And I feel the open source machine learning libraries are far better than the commercial ones in many cases because everyone gets to work with them. This also increases trustworthiness because people can look at the code, they can improve it. But if you look at all these lobby groups in Brussels, they added a lot of regulation that could be killing open source, it's been argued, because in open source, no one is ultimately, reliable for all of this, and no one would be willing to implement all these rules, but you wouldn't be allowed to use it. So it's been argued that it could kill open source. But I totally support open source, and if you want to start with AI, probably what you can do in machine learning is use Python. Python is a super popular programming language. It's pseudocode that you can execute effectively. And there are so many machine learning libraries, open source, freely available in Python to do machine learning.
Hey, thank you very much for the good talk. Could you maybe explain your terminology of vertical and horizontal regulation? What does that mean?
Yeah, vertical regulation means application or use case specific. So if you have regulation for airplanes, that would be vertical. Regulation for cars, for nuclear power plants. It's about systems, and these systems pose a risk. Yes, they do, and that's why they should be regulated. But the implementation is something that is minor or doesn't matter too much. It's more like general requirements for these systems. And horizontal would be independently of the use case, but like technology specific for everything. And the AI Act would be horizontal. And I believe where there's a real risk to health and safety or your savings, there's plenty of vertical regulation already, and maybe some of that needs to be amended AI specifically, and maybe there are some new use cases for which we require extra regulation, because I'm also concerned about all these deep fakes around elections. But I don't think the AI Act will fix it. And AI is just one way how to create this fake content. There are many other ways. Humans can create fake content. Maybe we need some laws specific to, banning wrong information or lies around elections. And if that content is generated by an AI or a human, I actually don't care. Because the AI is used to generate that content, but the AI doesn't come up on its own with that and doesn't decide to spread it. It's humans who had actually instructed the AI to do that.
One question. So I work in the automotive industry, first of all, in a car company in Texas. So first of all, I want to second everything you have said. I deal with the California privacy law and GDPR, and it's so much easier to do business in California. I wanted to get your opinion about the last week's, I think Wednesday, Senate hearing about the safety of social media, and the US debating right now to repeal, the rule, what is that, 213, which basically says if you're an internet company, you are not liable for what you put out on the internet. And they would make this very easy, just to say whatever you put out there, if it's AI or not, you're liable.
Yeah, that's something I think the concern was also that this could even eventually affect your internet provider who gives you an internet connection, that they could be liable. I think if that was repealed, this would probably just kill the internet and the web, because no one would want to be reliable, and people maybe couldn't even prevent it. There was also a hearing about something like this, or a case was argued in the US Supreme Court, I think 1 or 2 years ago, where they discussed that. It was not repealed, and they didn't rule in favor, I think, of that one party. The Senate hearing, I followed it, and I felt it wasn't really much about social media. It was more like a hearing against China. They specifically targeted the TikTok CEO, who is actually not Chinese, he's Singaporean, and numerous Republican senators claimed all the time that he was controlled by the Communist Party, and he emphasized he doesn't live in China and he's Singaporean. So I felt there was a huge bias in that hearing, and maybe they could have focused more on the actual topic. But maybe social media requires more regulation, I don't know. But if you regulate that more, and there are certain attempts to do this also in the Digital Services Act in the EU, it could always lead to control over information in a partisan way, and that's something we should make sure will not happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, and really thanks for all the excellent insight.